What if I told you this was the last Monday morning of your life? What if I told you you die this week? Would you complain about your crap job or that test you don't want to take? I doubt it. You would go much higher level thinking. Well, that's really what it takes. It takes understanding that if you're not pumped right now, if you're begrudging what you're about to do, if you're not looking forward to it, look, I respect practicality. You gotta go through school because your parents want to. You gotta pay your rent. You got student loans, I get it. But please recognize the world we're living in. We're living in a world where there's so much more opportunity. This internet thing created way more opportunity for all of us, way more. I mean, look, you might not even be alive. Like, your mom and dad could have had sex like 3 minutes later and you wouldn't even exist and you're complaining. You could have ended up being a bus, a tree. I just don't get the mentality of being head down sad on a Monday morning. I'm gonna make Monday morning my bitch. I'm gonna make you Saturday Monday morning. That's what I wanna do every morning, and that's what I want from you. Please, take a step back and think about how awesome it actually is. You need to bet on your strengths and don't give a f about what you suck at. Way too many people in this room are gonna spend the next 30, 40 years of their lives trying to check the boxes of the things that they're not as good at, and that you're gonna waste a load of time and lose. I highly recommend auditing yourself, or if you have no empathy or EQ or self-awareness, then find somebody in your family or friendship that does and let them tell you who you are. And once you believe that, either for yourself or someone else told you, go directly all chips, all into that, because that is the only possible way, in my opinion, watching from the outside, that is, let me rephrase, that is a very highly likely way of over-indexing. Because the truth is, if you want to be an anomaly, you've got to act like one. You know, like, and so, that's it. That's what I got. So thanks for having me. How do you get money to do what you love? You don't, right? I lost a load of money when I started doing what I loved. What you do is you position yourself to succeed. So for example, if you're doing something else and you want to do this thing you love, you do it after hours. You work 9 to 6, you get home, you kiss the dog, and you go to town, right? I mean, you start building your equity and your brand and whatever you're trying to accomplish after hours. Everybody has time. Stop watching Lost. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want this, if you want bling bling, if you want to buy the jets, if you want to do work, that's how you get it. I think there's massive confusion around entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship sucks. I mean, it's lonely, it's high risk. I mean, I can't live without it, but it's like a bad boyfriend, right? Or girlfriend, right? There's a ton of bad days being an entrepreneur. Not to mention 98% of entrepreneurial ventures are gonna fail. So there's gonna be a really bad day in your future. You know, hopefully not for you, or any of you. You know, for me, I think this is a very personal question. I think it's how you're wired. I'm so all in entrepreneur, I prefer the pain. I think one of the reasons I love the Jets so much is because they bring me so much pain. You know, I love the climb. To me, the setback is exciting. I love when something goes wrong. It's where I shine the most. But that's not for everybody, right? I mean, it can be very difficult. And when you start affecting your life and your loved ones and all the other things, it can get real nasty. To me, the way I handle things, even in the few rare days when I really struggle, I take a real step back and make pretend that somebody called me and told me that my mother or daughter were killed. And I know that's very dark, and I apologize, but it's really what I do. I literally am able to, at my deepest, most struggling moment within business, take a step back and remind myself that I could make $1 trillion tomorrow on Bitcoin, and if something bad happened to the people I love the most, that it would mean nothing. And it very consistently rewires me very quickly. I just put business in perspective. At the end of the day, you know, it's money. For me, it's not really money, it's my legacy, so I get hurt by it a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I put it in perspective. It's money. And you know what? Up until I had a daughter, even while I was married, up until when I had Misha 4 years ago, I secretly wanted to lose all my money. I had this weird, twisted, dark fantasy of losing everything just to rise again like a phoenix and remind you great thing now in this. Once in every 4 months, somebody sends an email saying, I've got a huge startup that I want you to invest in, but you've got to sign this NDA, right? Which literally every time gets an email back that says, F you, right? And the reason is, I'm a humongous believer that ideas are shit and that execution's the game, right? We've all got ideas. Everybody's got ideas. Do you know how many ideas we all have here? We could probably sit here for the next 2 hours, draw them all out, record them, and predict the next 78 great startups over the next 9 years. And so I think the thing that is another theme in entrepreneurship is there is way too much fodder brought to the idea. Uber was Magic Cab 3 years earlier. Uber is not an idea. Uber existed. It was called Magic Cab. But the guys that executed it sucked, so they lost. So I think, if there's any level of romance left in this room about your idea, I'd like to suffocate it. Because I think the actual situation is what you actually do with it. In 2001, it snowed in New Jersey on December 23rd, which was one of the busiest days of the year. Typically, December 23rd is the busiest day of the year in a liquor store. And a woman called us, we just started shipping, and her case of Beringer White Zinfandel wasn't delivered. First of all, I appreciate the people that know what Beringer White Zin is, good job. The entire case, by the way, 15-pack, the entire 15-pack case cost $45. We're doing about $40,000 an hour in the store. She calls. I find out about it. Somehow it was buzzing because I was on the floor selling. I am the premier salesman on the floor, as you can imagine. I find out about it, and we're debating what to do. She needs it for her Christmas dinner. I grab the case, throw it in my car, and drive to Bergen County to deliver it. It takes me 2.5 hours to complete the whole thing. The woman was 194 years old. We didn't have a lot of lifetime value on the back end there. She looked like Yoda. And the best part was, I delivered it, all pumped with myself, and she said, great, and closed the door. Awesome. Everybody, especially my dad, who was pissed that I left because all the customers that came in asking for me or that I could have sold, everybody was baffled. I can't tell you what the ROI of driving through the snow in my car to deliver a case of $45 pink shit to a woman that looked like Yoda was. But I can tell you this, over the next 2 to 3 years, that story became the foundation of how we treated every single customer. It became our competitive edge. And those are the things that matter to me. I love black and white data. I'm obsessed with it. The day when the nerd beat me, I understood that the nerds beat me. And I respect the living out of data, conversion funnels, all that shit. But I'm telling you right now that there are way too many running businesses today with this, and not enough people running businesses with this. And again, I swear on my life, I am not Mother Teresa, and I far from run my business just on this. But I'm telling you right now, the reason I amassed my following, the reason why I continue to retain it, is because my percentage of this far outweighs every in this room. I mean it. That's how I feel, and that's how I try to roll every day. And I promise you, if you are able to figure out how to afford the allocation of this in your business more, your long-term value will be dramatically higher. Your long-term business success will be dramatically higher. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents built businesses based on this. It's how we built the whole thing. We got really lean and mean when we went to the suburbs and big box stores and all we cared about was dollars, and it's great. And the data matters, and continue to use it and use this tool and understand it. But I'm asking you one final thing. When you go home, if this talk meant anything, and by the way, I fundamentally believe only 3 of you are gonna act on this talk. I do, because what I talk about is ridiculously hard and massively frustrating and takes forever. You know, like everything that's good in life. If you do anything because of this keynote, there's only one thing I ask you to do, because as zenny as I got, I'm a practical. Here's what I want from you. When you go home, look yourself in the mirror and audit everything you and your business do. I promise you that if you audit from top to bottom of expenses and effort and time and energy and payroll and all that shit, if you audit all of it, even the best of us, even the InBevs, which is the company that bought Budweiser, they built their whole business on like printing on both sides of the paper and all that horse. Even the most efficient ones of us are doing 20% dumb shit. If you take that 8%, that 13%, that 16% of dumb shit that you're doing, paying that person that's not bringing any cultural value to your business, having that contract that you've just been in and you just renew because you're busy as f***, whatever the f*** you're doing, if you take any piece of that percentage and you apply it to giving a f*** about your customer, it will be better for your business going forward, because for the first time since we all lived in small towns where your reputation was the complete backbone of how you did business, for the first time, because technology is bringing us back together in a small town, for the first time, being good and caring and following up matters. It matters. How about doing something random act of kindness for a current customer, not the ones that unsubscribed or left? You know how you always do nice shit when they're going? How about while you've got them? Reallocate your thought process, I'm telling you, because the tools that is the umbrella of this event are getting so good, so good. You know what that means? All that shit's about to become a commodity. Emotional EQ is going to dominate business over the next decade, and I implore you to start paying attention. And oh, by the way, I'll leave you with this. You know what the best part is? It feels good. Thank you. The ability to adjust is the entire game. Like, I'm so proud that I change my mind every day. My dad used to get so pissed when I was building Wine Library. He would always be like, he would say like, 3 months ago you said Ricky was gonna be the best employee. I'm like, I changed my mind. He fire him. Or he's like, you said sparkling wine was important, now you just eliminated it from the key spot. I'm like, I changed my mind. Like, my ability to only be comfortable in massive chaos has been my biggest asset as an entrepreneur. Like, I would never take a note. Like, that scares the piss out of me what these 3 people are doing right now, right? And so, now, that may work for them, and I'm not, like, back to the opening statement, like, you need to do you. Like, plenty of people that make a load more money than me and have won bigger take notes. The key is way too many people are doing, like, here's a good one. You know what really pissed me the off? I'm completely driven by like happiness, and like I'm crippled by like chaos. Like, you know, VaynerMedia, which is now 500 people, update your VaynerMedia is like completely dictated by, like, I'm a dictator of HR. Like, all I care about is the atmosphere. All I care about is how people intern. All I care about is like how people roll. Like, I think I fired the 4 most talented, smartest people that have worked for me, because if you don't know how to play with the other boys and girls, you're out, because I suffocate under, you know, conflict and negativity, and like nobody's better than me, so you gotta go. So what really pissed me off in tech world was when Steve Jobs' book came out, when he was dying, when it was all about Steve 3 or 4 years ago. I literally watched a lot of my tech startup friends start being like a to their staff, because Jobs was tough. Everybody fell into the romance of like, I have this big vision and I'm gonna be a like Steve, right? And I thought that was really interesting for me to watch that half decade of like literally watching people I know and then watching them act differently because the status or the icon of the moment, and you see a lot of that. And so like that is probably the energy I'm trying to bring to this class today, which is you can look at like how people roll, and like it's great to admire and things of that nature, but it's so damn important to stick to like your DNA, right? And like what you're good at. And to recognize that you need to surround yourself, whether it's your co-founder or whether it's the people that work for you. Like, all I do is hire the people that are the opposite of me, that bring the other value, that bring me the ability to remember what the that meeting was about and go make sure it happens. You know, like whatever it may be, right? And so I think that's another thing that I would highly recognize. delegate everything that I think is not the single most important things in the world, and then I micromanage the things that I think are the most important things in the world. Luckily for me, hence why I've been able to build big companies, I don't think most things matter. So I don't think I'm any different than anybody else. I actually think everybody is a delegator and a micromanager. I just think that my radar of what's important is different. Yes, we need to do something with that. That's the guys, that's it right there. I'm just like you, we're all the same. We all delegate, we all micromanage. The difference is, I don't think most things matter. And what do I mean by that? As I'm trying to think about somebody watching this for the first time, instead of alluding to like people that have watched forever. Most things don't matter. Like I don't know, like just, I don't know, that's what it means. Like, you know, like if I was like, I don't know, I don't think lighting matters as much as D-Rock. Like, I just don't think things matter. Like, I don't think like one client that's gonna put us out of it, like, I don't think one employee is gonna kill our atmosphere. I don't think a lot of things matter. I don't think like a misspelling in a deck is something that really matters to a lot of people in my company. It just doesn't matter to me. I just don't think so. Guys, I don't think we're gonna lose a count because we put the I before the E. And if we do, them. Idiots. I don't think not wearing shoes in an establishment is, you know, the biggest thing in the world. Clearly, if you've watched Daily V1, some people do. And guess what? I do not judge. Do not judge. Everybody's allowed to do their thing. It's just like parenting. I will never spew my parenting. I talk about it, but it's very holistic. Like, this is what I do, not what I'm telling you to do. This is me, but like, so ultimately, I think that I'm both. Like everybody in the world, I just think that I deem what's most important at a very, very high level on things that most people, you know what? A lot of you are commenting about my 5-minute meetings. Most of you, because you're part of my community, think it's great. A lot of comments on YouTube and Facebook of like, oh, I like Daily V because Gary spends 5, that's nice. One comment, I work in a small, and by the way, whoever said this is gonna see this and be like, holy crap, he reads everything. I've worked at small companies where the boss didn't even know my name, you know what I mean? Like, this is cool, but do you know how many people think it's stupid? I have a lot of people in my life that think that I'm very busy and I have a lot of things to do, and why in the world, Gary, it's not scalable, it's not sustainable. Yeah, you're making that face because you're so in our cocoon, but like, boy, just like, you know, like, don't do that. It's not bad. Nobody expects you to do it, not at this scale. And you have a great culture and you have great intent, just do that. I'm like, nope, this thing matters to me. So I'm micromanaging a hello into my company 3 to 6 months in, that a lot of people outsource to an HR person or to leadership. So I do unscalable things all the time, micromanaging if I deem them the most important. Pitching new business. I like to micromanage that because it's important to win business. Like money helps me keep doing everything. I think the biggest obstacle to success is a lack of optimism. That question in itself is the problem, my friend, right? You're looking at two things that are both negatives, and guess what? Both of them are obstacles. When I started WineLibrary.com transformation for my business, I had time. I worked my face off every minute, but we didn't have a whole lot of money in our profit center, so it took more time, right? It's just the way it is. Today, I have more money, but boy, don't I have time. But neither, ever will be an excuse for me. And so, just to drill this through the throat of the Vayner Nation. That's right, I went that graphic. Don't smile, D-Rock. Here's the bottom line. I refuse to allow you to get an answer to that question because both of them are firmly square in the excuse column, and I have no patience for that. There will always be problems. Let's talk about a million other things that are a way to stop success. The health and well-being of your family members, so it takes your mind away from execution. The country you live in's government and political, concepts at these moments, a la startups in China that I've invested in that got traction, but then people that were wired into the government decided to not allow it to happen, and then the startup disappeared. Not as easy to be an entrepreneur there. It's still a communist country. Sorry, it just is. And so all these things can be problems, right? There's a competitor with $1 billion who's also skilled and punches you in the mouth and knocks you out in the first round, right? The world changing. I mean, there's just a million obstacles, right? The media, one bad coverage of you, a moment in time. You know what I think about a lot? You know what I think about a lot? Let's get really real. This is why we did this show. I'm a human being. And I always think about a moment in time. What if I just say the wrong thing at the wrong time, right? What if I call out China for being a communist country in an episode while I'm on a rant, and somebody who's watching doesn't like the way that tastes, and it takes away a business opportunity for me in China in 7 years, even though I'm not trying to zing, it's just things that I saw. What if I look down on my phone while I'm driving, even though I've really not done that, and I hit somebody and I kill them, and that becomes the story. And they're like, forget about the story about what you think of me. I will never recover from that because I killed somebody because I needed to check a tweet. These are moments in time. So there are so many things that can keep you from being successful, right? The people that you invested in, having something bad happen to them, so it slows you down. My friends, there are a million reasons why not, but there's one great reason why, which is you've just got to persevere, no matter what it is. It's just the way it is. It's hard being an entrepreneur. It's hard building a business. Everybody thinks it's so easy, that there's an entitlement. There's a disaster. Zinging China, here comes my US zing right now. There is an insane generation of 18 to 25-year-olds right now that think they're entitled to having a business because they saw the Social Network movie, and everybody's decided if you're a kid and you know what tech is, because you used Instagram early on, you're entitled to actually build a business. Building a business is hard. And you know what makes it really hard? Everything that happens every day of every moment. So, you can pick time, you can pick money as the one or two things that you think stop you from winning your game, but the truth is, there's a million reasons. 99% of businesses go out of business for a reason, and that reason is, it's hard. And so, if you're watching this show, I've got a sense of who you are, and you need to start creating layers and layers and layers and layers of skin to be able to get through, because the glamour of being an entrepreneur, the goodness, you get very confused by my optimism, because it's my optimism. I can't help it. It's just how I roll. It's probably one of the variable 1% reasons why I'm successful. But please, don't get it twisted. This is hard. Every day is hard. And if you don't have the stomach to weather the storm, you will not be successful. And by the way, let me throw you a real weird curveball, and that's okay. People have to look themselves in the mirror and understand if they're a number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in an organization that has differences of being a number 1, but maybe that's where your skill set sits. Maybe that's how you make your fortunes and happiness and all the things that you're looking for. And so, that question got me going a little bit, Steve, because it's under the context of excuses, and I will never make an excuse. Everything that's a problem with me, everything I don't achieve, everything that's a problem at VaynerMedia, and everything is my fault. And I succumb to that, and I respect that, and I actually think that's the way it should be. And so, no excuses, my friends. What if I told you this was the last Monday morning of your life? What if I told you you die this week? Would you complain about your crap job or that test you don't want to take? I doubt it. You would go much higher level thinking. Well, that's really what it takes. It takes understanding that if you're not pumped right now, if you're begrudging what you're about to do, if you're not looking forward to it, look, I respect practicality. You gotta go through school because your parents want to. You gotta pay your rent. You got student loans. I get it. But please recognize the world we're living in. We're living in a world where there's so much more opportunity. This internet thing created way more opportunity for all of us. Way more. I mean, look, you might not even be alive. Like, your mom and dad could have had sex like 3 minutes later and you wouldn't even exist, and you're complaining. You could have ended up being a bus, a tree. I just don't get the mentality of being head down sad on a Monday morning. I'm gonna make Monday morning my bitch. I'm gonna make you Saturday Monday morning. That's what I wanna do every morning, and that's what I want from you. Please, take a step back and think about how awesome it actually is. and then recognize that you can attack the world in a totally different way because you were lucky enough to be born during this era. 2 calls right after I do this video. Phil Toronto from VaynerRC, the fund, is coming and having a meeting that was going to be at 11:30 p.m. tonight. He's coming to meet me at 1. Basically, what I'm fascinated by is that people like to say they hustle, and I talk about working the whole day, and then I've talked to you guys a lot about, well, it's not about how much you sleep, it's what you do while you're awake, and this is a perfect example of something that I've watched a lot of my contemporaries and a lot of you, the Vayner Nation, right, that say they love to hustle. When something happens, a meeting gets canceled, right? There's a curveball, it's a snow day, right? They take that as vacation time instead of adjusting to it. See, the truth of the matter is, being efficient, executing, shooting for those big goals is predicated on your actions. Do you take an extra long lunch from jury duty to say, you know what, cool, I'm gonna chill and watch YouTube videos? Or do you hustle your face off and try to cram as much in to, you know, I'm excited that that's my first thought. Now look, I get it. I'm sitting on a high chair right now and talking down to like, you should do this. I'm really not. I'm really not telling you what you should do. I'm really not trying to be a guru. I'm not really trying to be too cool and say, ha ha ha, look at me, not you. I'm really not. I'm really just making these videos, not for the people that you find this condescending, not for the few people that find it motivational. I'm making this video for the people that are full of shit, right? The ones that tell me to my face every day that yeah, you know, and really want it and don't recognize the actions that it takes to get there. So I'm making this video for a very small percentage of you. To the left, look, oh, Gary thinks he's so cool. To the right, that's the best ever. Complete blindness. No, the middle. The middle, my friends. So many of you that actually want this, have the skills to do this, right? And sometimes, once in a while, just need to see a different version of it to understand, right? To me, this is an video, right? Did you mail it in? Did you mail in that 15-minute call got canceled? You had a packed day, 15-hour day. It got canceled. What are you doing in that 15 minutes? And by the way, sometimes those 15 minutes are absolutely worth calling your mom, calling your daughter, FaceTime with your kids. But it's just making every minute count. Every minute has to count. Every minute has to count if you want so much, because you just don't have as many of them as you think. Good enough to win. And I think you're good enough to win at your level. Am I gonna win at the ultimate biggest guy of all time? Gates, Zucks, Buffett? Probably not. Am I more charismatic and loving and more interesting than those characters? I think so. Do I have enough to get me to $1 billion? I think so. But is that 40 billion? No. Are you good enough to get to 100,000? 400,000? I think so. Just sat here and read 100 emails from people that were making 40, 50K, 30K, read Crush It, read Thank You Economy, got inspired by me. But I was a spark. I was the one that had that insane thing that I have in me that made them say, You know, things that make you go, 80s reference, sorry. But then they had it in them. And so when I make this video, what's coming from my heart right now is, maybe you're watching this and saying, maybe I need to hedge. You know, if you work from 8 p.m. to 4 in the morning, will your dreams come true? No, you might not be good enough. You might have not picked the right product. But are we living in a world in 2012 that's so much better than your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents' generation because assholes like me can make videos when I'm 30,000 feet in the air? Yes. And because of that, and because of those opportunities, and because we're networked in a way we've never seen before, and because sending an email to 100 people and one will answer and give you a shot matters, because of that opportunity, because of 2012, I beg you to take a shot. Roll up on that hot chick in a bar and ask her out. Roll up on that good looking dude and ask him for coffee. Roll up on your business idea and make it happen. Because being 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and having regrets that you didn't swing the bat is the worst of them all. Our at-bat is in front of us. Take a swing.
fire I see in the eyes of a 19, 20, 25-year-old that feels that they're entitled to this, and then on the flip side, the diminishing just a little bit of ashes with a little smoke left of that same entrepreneur when they were 22 at 46, when practicality and family dynamics and the history and the market tearing down and the lack of that same opportunity has just dwindled down to a moment where they don't believe that they've got that shot. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely do. I mean, there are absolutely a ton of entrepreneurs that started their companies in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s when it was difficult to do such a thing. Sidney Frank, who created Grey Goose, didn't invent his big thing until in the 70s. And so I'm desperate to give you the springboard to say, you know what? Instead of watching House of Cards seasons, instead of trying to go to ball games or things of that nature, yeah, I do have 7 p.m. till 2 in the morning, Monday through Friday. Heck, for a lot of you, the kids are out of the house. I mean, let's get into practicality for the late 40s, 50s, 60-year-olds that are watching this right now. The kids are out of the house. Like, yeah, you could pick up golf, or you could finally start that candle company because you put pretty pictures of candles on Instagram and it happens. Learn the craft. Figure out the opportunity at hand, go attack it. You only live once. When you're 90 to 100 years old and you're regretting that you never built this business and you let this era pass, this moment where there's so much entrepreneurial upside, you'll regret it, and regret is the worst.
If you're not great at it, but you love it more than life, should you go after it? To me, the answer is yes. The problem is, please also recognize you're probably not gonna get rich. Like, if you love basketball more than life, it's just what you always loved, you might just make $49,000 a year being a basketball coach and having a lot of time on your hand to play basketball. It's just, you gotta understand, you can't have everything all the time, always. It's just life. I think happiness trumps everything. Easy for me to say because it really worked out for me because happiness coincides with financial upside. I have friends who make $74,000 a year that are just happier people than friends that are making 18 million a year that are not. You've got to do you, but please don't let the entrepreneurial society, don't let me, don't let your parents push you into what success is. It's different for all of us, but, and this is the big but, you got to be self-aware about it. Nope.
And that's why
I mean, by the way, that's the same answer for everybody in this room. That's what humans are good at. We all fail. We've all failed. Like, my parents haven't been killed, my child, I mean, there's people that have their children die. Like, could you imagine? Like, the shit I deal, listen, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how one wants to look at it, I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I lost 3 of my 4 grandparents before I knew them. 2 before I was born and 1 very early on. Like, so, it's easy for me to be happy. I have my shit in the right order. The health and well-being of my family. And there's nothing even remotely close to that. Not even remotely. People have gotten through much worse. This is why I'm trying to recall our grandparents and our great-grandparents. People were persecuted and killed. Like, we do not have real headaches. I don't know why I have this highly emotional and then completely unemotional part of me, but I mix them together to create the balance, and that's what works for me. So, of course there's nothing that I couldn't get up from. Like every other human ever besides somebody who now lives in some weird cave that we don't know about. You know what I mean?
I do.
We are strong as shit. We're really strong. We're just being sold that we're not, because there's a lot of money in telling us that we're not pretty enough, thin enough, smart enough, good enough. That. I want to tell you, you're the best. Go do shit. We're gonna make less money this year at 100 million than we made last year at 67. Net. I don't mean percentage. Net. Meaning they're in trouble. Them. I see it. which means I overinvested. More people, more capabilities, because I'm gonna take the whole pie. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about how much cash I'm gonna take home in 2016, because I can take a lot more in 2020 than it's much more fun to take home 44 million in 2020 than 3 million in 2017, 18, and 19, instead of 4 million in 2018. Like, people are, 99% of the market is short term. And the 1% that isn't and has the talent wins every time. Which makes no sense, because unless you're gonna die, you should only play long term. There was a stat that some dude in Mexico City said, one of these like futurist type of characters, I'm sure he's smart. I have no idea who, but he was right before me as I was mic'd up, and he says, it's been scientifically proven, so I don't know if it has or not, because I've learned to take that with a grain of salt, but that 85% of what humans make decisions about is irrational. And that spoke to me, because A, I think it's higher, and B, it's why I think all my success is happening. I am stunningly the most rational and the most practical of all, yet I don't seem it. And when he said it, I'm like, right, that's why. Because the rest of the market is irrational. There's a reason that guys and gals like me continue to have audiences, because people want to be motivated to go and do things, or they want to learn tactics to go and do things. But whether I'm giving you tactical advice like filters on Snapchat or Facebook ads or Instagram story collaborations, or I'm motivating you through my words, because I communicate that way, or through my actions, seeing this wake up at 5, work with it. If everybody who's watching this actually did something about it, and then went on the course of their version of it, then they wouldn't be watching this. And I genuinely know at the bottom of my heart, out of all the people that want to build audiences, that I'm the complete opposite of almost all of them. Because 99% of people that produce content like this and are out there like I am, the business of being that is what they are. I have businesses. I have Wine Library and VaynerMedia. I don't need your 14 bucks for my book, or to be in my course, or this and that. So I don't need to monetize you. So I then genuinely want you to never watch me again. The problem is, every time you guys are posting, do you know how many times I see on my Instagram, oh, I needed this today? And do you know how many times I see that person 9 months later still hanging around? If you needed it, then take it and do something about it. The reason there's gonna be 1 billion motivational views today on YouTube is that people love the feeling of being motivated. They don't like putting in the work to do something about the feeling. How do you stay driven? I'm gonna ask you a question. How don't you stay driven? Well, let me get this right. You won the lotto of the universe, which is you are a human being on Earth. I'm just gonna say this, I don't think people think about this. You won the lotto. You, in the universe, you're not some weird specimen in Mars that does nothing. You're not, a bird. You're not a sunflower. Like, you are a human being on Earth. You won the ultimate lottery, and you're not driven, and you're not fired up, and you're not going for it, and you're willing to sit like a lump and just wait till you die. You suck. Like, I don't know, you suck. Like, how do I stay driven? Because I couldn't even comprehend the alternative. You know who you are, then by nature, you'll probably bet on your strengths. If you bet on your strengths, you'll win.
Right.
In 4th grade, when I got an F in Mr. Molinar's science class, I knew right then and there that I was a student and I didn't give a crap about Saturn. And no joke, from that moment on, I can taste it in my mouth right now. I remember everything about this day. I hid the test in my drawer because I needed to get it signed. This was old school 80s school stuff. Yeah. And I didn't show my mom, and then my conscience got the best of me and I cried, and it was all weird. But what I remember more than anything was at that moment, because I'd already done lemonade and I already sold random stuff around the house door to door, I was like, I'm a businessman. That's what I called it back then. And that's it.
and I'm never gonna hedge. And it came from self-awareness and self-esteem, right? My mom was making me feel good, and I knew who I was, and I would tell you that is urgency, speed matters. Yeah. I believe in that. But if somebody who's listening, watching right now, if they really know who they are, like, look, if my daughter wants to stand outside and do street art for 19 hours a day, I'm all in, as long as like she's aware that that's what's going to make her the happiest, right? Like, I got lucky that the thing that made me the happiest by public standards is something that makes me money and makes me deemed successful.
Sure.
But boy, I'd be super pumped being all in on anything, right? Like, as long as you just know. I wish that I could win on my looks, but I don't, right? Like, you have to know what you're gonna win on. And too many people want to be a pop singer or a comedian or a pretty face model, and it's just not who they are. Yeah. And too many of you are leaving enormous upside on the table by trying to force a narrative that's romantic in your mind versus what you actually have. Yeah. I could do so many more things to build up my following, but it's not who I am. I know the hacking ways to get more followers, to get more people to know who I am, but I'm a businessman that happens to like understand content a little bit. So I'm never going to be followed by the most, but I'm also, that means not going to sell things I don't believe in. Yeah. So if you follow all the other entrepreneurs on Instagram, they're selling watches and cash on bed and models and bottles and private planes, and I don't sell that because I don't want to get the cheap followers or the cheap engagement. Yep. And so when you really are self-aware, when you really know who you are, what it allows you to do is stay in your lanes, not do other things. I can't produce the kind of videos that my buddy Casey can, right? I can't, like, it's just not who I am. And so you stay in your lane. My daily vlog, it's just one exhausting episode of me hustling 24 hours a day. And honestly, eventually it's gonna be very repetitive, but I don't care, that's my reality. My reality is I'm a workaholic who has some talents but wants to show people that if you work really hard, if you want it, then at least you can get the most out of yourself. Yeah. Not that you're gonna make $1 billion if you work hard, but the most out of yourself. So I think self-awareness is imperative. It's why I put it in the new book. If you really want self-awareness, you need to wildly, if you want to hack self-awareness, I actually think it's predicated on having thick skin. I think that is why I really think so much of what I pull off is predicated on how thick my skin is. My skin is thick. I just can handle it. I just can. I hate it. I hate like reading bad stuff about me. It's devastating, but I respect it. I can accept it. I understand it. And I try to use it as something that I go on the offense with going forward. And so they're learning moments. And so, if you can get over yourself, right? And the funny thing is, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm so self-aware, I'm not sure. Even people that I think are not self-aware around me, it's funny to me how self-aware they really are. It's just, you don't let your brain accept your shortcomings. One thing I think I do well, and at VaynerMedia, is I make everybody feel safe. And so that's really important to me, because when you make people feel safe, they start telling you the truth, right? So if you were able to go home right now, if you're struggling to figure out what you're good at, if you're able to take the 10 to 20 people that are closest to you, siblings, wives, husbands, partners, friends, the 10 to 20 people you would consider the closest to you in the world, and if you were able to talk to them and make them feel safe before you asked them the following question, if you made them emphatically for 20 minutes and said, look, this is the most important question I will ever ask you in my life. You need to tell me the truth. My intuition is you're not gonna wanna tell me the truth, but you have to understand I'm okay with it. I'm in the right mind space for this. I need the truth. And then you ask them, what do they think you're good at and bad at? It's an amazing, and obviously I put out that post, it really resonated. I'm getting crazy emails of people like having amazing things happen to them. I think if you do not have self-awareness, which is what I do think I have, and I think a lot of people don't have it, the only way you can gain it is by getting other people to give you the data points. But most people won't tell you the truth. So it's on you to create an environment, a very safe environment, for somebody to tell you the truth of what they truly think you're good and bad at, and then gather that data. A lot of people don't want to recognize what they're good at. or don't want to accept that they're bad at something. It's like that whole American Idol singing thing, right? Like, some of those people really believe they're great at singing and they suck, right? Like, they really believe it. And so, I don't think people are honest with themselves. There's a lot of things I wish I was. But I just don't lie to myself. And I think lying to yourself has held back the far majority of this room from bigger upside. I love to give like definitive answers to get people moving, because the more you ponder, the more you squander.